It was Stephen King. Stephen King. He says, "Can you ask the game wardens if they can share their location 24/7, their GPS location?"
Yeah, we actually do.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Cast&Blast podcast. I'm your host, Pinche. This is my co-host, Jimmy Trent.
Hey.
Joining us today is Game Warden Chris Sanchez. He serves Bell County. We had a great time with him last time, and you guys sent us a ton of questions to ask the Game Warden, so this is another Ask the Game Warden episode.
Hey, some good questions in there, too.
So we got some good questions in, and why don't you tell us a little bit more about, for those that is the first time seeing you, tell everybody what county you serve and what you do for the people in Texas.
Okay. So I'm one of 3 game wardens assigned here to Bell County.
Okay.
I've got 2 other partners. We are the conservation officers off the pavement. We specialize in hunting and fishing regulations as well as water safety, which is what I was here for the last time to discuss. We are certified peace officers. Not only do we do the hunting and fishing and the water safety, but we do any other state and federal law as it sees fit. So we kind of a jack of all trades, but we specialize in the conservation aspect.
Well, I'm glad you're here because it's an exciting time for us because September 1st is right around the corner, and that's the start of a lot of the hunting seasons, particularly bird season.
That's when it's kicking off.
Yeah, we got dove hunts coming off.
I think teal opens September.
Early
1st.
September, yeah. You got duck season, and shortly after that, the all waited for whitetail season, right? So we sent out a message to our viewers and said, hey, we're going to have the game warden on. Can you guys, this is your opportunity. What questions do you have? And they came in.
They did come in. The questions that they had were, a lot of them some well thought out questions that are kind of tough. But before we get into some of those, let's talk about some of those real common things that happen. And from what I understand is one of your most common violations is no hunter's ed or no
Correct.
proof of.
Correct.
So can you elaborate on that I think even hunting pigs, you have to have hunter ed. You don't have to have a license, but you have to have hunter's ed.
So let's tackle license first and go into hunter's ed, if you will. It's September 1st.
Okay.
That's kind of a big deal for...
So there's a reason why licenses go on sale about mid-August. August 15th is the magical day for the new and upcoming season.
Right.
And the state opens up the point-of-sale transactions on August 15th, typically every year. So that gives folks a half a month to get ready so that they don't have to be in there on September 1 while everybody else is hunting or shooting birds, per se,
right.
To get their licensure. So we start a little bit early as it pertains to the purchase of your license. Anybody, regardless of age, is required to have a hunting license if, in fact, they are going to hunt in the state of Texas. So Perfect. If you are a non-resident and you are any age and planning to come here, you will need some type of license, whether it be as a youth individual under the age of 17, you are a non-resident youth. Mm-hmm. If you are a non-resident greater than or equal to 17 years of age, you'll need to have a non-resident hunting license. And you have options depending on what you're going to hunt.
Sure.
But again, non-resident hunting license. Residents also have similar options. The difference predominantly is residents get a break in the cost of the same type of license. The whiz-bang for residents is a super combo.
Super combo. That's the way to go. That's the only way to go.
Agreed. That's what I buy for adults in my family. But the super combo is identical for a non-resident or a resident youth that only pays $7. A super combo currently runs you about $68. So there's a significant difference while you are under the age of 17, regardless as if you are a resident or a non-resident. Now, that same super combo license, if in fact you are going to hunt deer in the state of Texas, a non-resident for a general hunting license, which would include deer and turkey. No, predominantly deer, because you can get a special one for turkey. It's going to cost you a little bit more than that. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 300. I'm not sure exactly.
And that includes mule deer as well.
Correct. It's deer. So Texas deer hunting, a license purchased for any individual, whether it be a resident or non-resident, you are provided 5 white-tailed deer tags and 2 mule deer tags. And with that super combo, you'd also get a redfish tag as your first one, as well as your turkey tags, 4 turkey tags. So now that being said, depending on how you're hunting in Texas for white-tailed deer, there are some special provisions, special drawn hunts, MLD tags, etc., which you need to have a hunting license, but you don't have to use those tags that are on your license.
Right.
Now, while we're on the subject of licensure, I'm going to open up a can of worms because we, as of last year, have 2 options
That's right.
for licensing.
Yep.
You have a digital license as of last year and again this year, as well as your traditional license, a paper copy,
So
if
you have
you
a
will.
hard copy and a digital copy.
Yep. The only way you can get a digital copy is online.
Yeah.
So if you went down to the local wherever you bought your store or whatever store or facility you bought your license from, understand you did not buy a digital
That's right.
hunting license.
You have to register it.
Yeah, last year, that first go round, there was enough confusion. I'll just use that word to where people just didn't understand, and people were honestly making mistakes just because they just were not aware.
Yeah.
They bought a super combo, whatever paper license that they bought, but they were trying to do things digitally, and they were getting in trouble for. I mean, they were in violation.
And
So
I'm glad
this
you're
year's a little
clarifying
different.
that, because there are people that have talked to me about it. It's like, oh, I got my paper, but you can register it, or you're online now. It's all online. No,
Yeah.
it's not.
So one of the things that the department did is clarify that for any user doing anything in the app that is required to do that digital tagging. The app is for harvest. If in fact you are a user who wants to report information about your hunt, and you go in there without having the true digital license, you will be prompted as a user that says, hey, listen,
You're about to mess up.
no, understand that you don't have what's required for this, but if you wish to proceed, I believe that's how the verbiage is. I'd have to double check, but there's more direct information available this year than there was last year to overcome or at least minimize the confusion for those individuals.
If you have the hard copy, you have the harvest log.
Okay.
Can you talk about the importance of the harvest log? I mean, you're in violation without, completing that harvest log and what the purpose of that harvest log is for.
Okay. So, and that may clear up some of the same confusion. So when you make reference to the harvest log on your paper license, that is strictly for the take of a white-tailed deer. The only logging on your license is for those 5 deer tags that come with your license. Because depending on where you're hunting in the state, your bag limit kind of changes. And the criteria is independent based on county of
right.
this state. So every county for years past has a bag limit. And I'll give you the example. Bell County has a bag limit of 2 deer. Well, why do I have 5 tags?
Right.
When I say 2 deer, it's 2 buck deer.
2 bucks.
Okay. So your 5 tags on your hunting license, 2 of them are strictly antlerless. If you use those, the deer needs to be defined by regulation as antlerless, and that's defined in the Outdoor Annual.
Right.
The other 3 tags are either buck or antlerless. So you can choose. Now in Bell County, I can use 2 of those 3 tags. However, Bell County has an antler restriction. Okay. So what it does is it minimizes the taking of deer. You're allowed 1 buck with an antler spread inside greater than 13 inches.
Yep.
And the other one is what we refer to as a cull buck. So it's either slick on one side or both.
Right.
Okay. So those are the only 2 bucks that you can take legally in Bell County. So what happens with that third tag? Well, if you hunt another place in the state, you've got a third tag. Whether that's your big buck or your little buck is depending on what county you're going to hunt in.
It gives you options.
Yeah, and you have options. Now,
hope you're not taking a spike, but if you harvest what you might have thought was a doe, and it happens.
You get a button buck.
You get over there, it's a button buck or it's a spike, just barely got something to hang off. You better tag that properly, because if you are, there's no excuse. I mean, it was. If
it hasn't broken a skin,
well, there's that
antlerless deer.
And that's part of the definition of the antlerless defined in the book.
That's right. And that's why it's defined as antlered or antlerless. It really doesn't. I don't think it says buck. I don't. Does it?
Antlerless is defined the way, without looking it up.
It doesn't say doe. It says antlerless.
Yes, that's correct. Because it is possible to tag a deer with parts of a buck.
That's right.
As an antlerless, even though it's not a quote unquote doe, a female deer, it's truly antlerless. And then there's two.
Doe have been known to grow antlers as well.
Right.
Correct. So it's vice versa. It could be a young nubbin buck that's antlerless based on it hasn't, as Jimmy said, protruded through the skin, or it could be a late in the season deer that has already shed. So those are kind of the latter part that I made reference to is not as likely, but it happens on occasion. Now, we haven't clarified what Jimmy asked for was the harvest log.
There we go.
So for each of those 5 tags, regardless of which one you use, you have to fill in the log on the back of your license to reflect the tags. And if in fact you execute a tag, in other words, you use one, you pull it, you cut it, you mark it, it's all important. And if you look at those tags that specifically say cut out, that's another common infraction.
Yeah, take the pin and...
Yeah, so cut it, mark it. So you're cutting out the month and the date, you're marking the location and the county, and then at that point, whether you choose to affix it to the deer at that minute or fill in the harvest log, your choice. But prior to doing anything else, that log and that tag need to be happening at the same time. And then at that point, you can manipulate your deer lawfully for those concerns. Now, that is the only log on your license. Now, back to this quote-unquote digital harvest. The app that says My Harvest Texas Hunt, or however it's identified. My Hunt Harvest Texas, is that what it says?
My Hunt Harvest
Texas.
My Texas Harvest.
Okay, My Texas
Hunt
Harvest.
There we go.
You can actually utilize that app to log anything that you take. You went duck hunting and you went to a particular unit, which you talked about public hunting previously.
Yep.
You went to a specific unit. Some units require some harvest information, but some are just volunteer. You know, let the department know, or let our biologists know that you were out there and on this day you saw whatever you saw, these resources, and you were successful in taking whatever it was you took. If in fact you hunted deer there and you tagged your deer, great. It's just double effort, okay? But it's not required unless you have that true digital license. And then that digital license has the caveats with the electronic tagging, and your license will be reflected in that application.
It almost geocaches your location if you wanted to. I've done it. I've had last year I had the digital copy, and I harvested a deer in South Texas, and I actually used the app to fill my tag.
But that information is super important for the biologist.
That's what people don't understand is it's going to the conservation effort.
Correct.
It's not to let necessarily the Game
They're not
Warden,
trying to big brother you and know where you're hunting and things like that. This past week we went down to the Whitetail Symposium in San Antonio, or near San Antonio.
Lavernia,
yeah. And we like to pride ourselves in thinking that we know quite a bit, but we went down there and learned a lot. So it was very informative and a good deal with to Texas Parks and Wildlife with all of the biologists that they had there. I was really impressed with a lot of them.
The data is so valuable to them.
Yep.
In the conservation effort.
Yeah. Just knowing where that deer,
Yes.
a county's very broad, but if you know where in the county and they know where more numbers of deer are, I mean, that, like you said, that's good data.
If we're not learning daily, weekly, monthly, then there's something wrong with with each of us. We all learn, but the department for years has studied white-tailed deer, and regulations come out from those studies. And then, of course, our hunters, right? Our hunters provide a lot of information for us outside of what we do on our management properties. Antler restrictions came into effect for the betterment of the herd, the deer population.
And I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
I'm indifferent sometimes. And there's some guys that, they brought us some good points in the questions on our social media too.
I do believe it's county by county, and that's the important part.
That's something I think that you'll hear a lot throughout this conversation is county by county in Texas. I mean, the biologists are out there doing, each region or county that has their biologists are doing different things for that region, for that purpose. So I think that's something that you probably hear a lot, but a lot of the times, I mean, you may not be able to take a cool buck in some places or enough of them. So then you're keeping those genes just keep going. But that's another thing too, is it's not always the buck genes. From my understanding, I don't think a lot of people understand that the doe has so much to do with those genes that are in those bucks.
Genetic
as well.
makeup, of course.
So the education is out there.
Yeah.
So you just have to get in there, and if you get
really a chance to go to one of those symposiums, definitely get involved.
Worth it.
It's worth it because, like we said, we're like, it would be naive of us to believe that we're not going to learn something from it. So why wouldn't we go? And we did, and we walked away going like, wow, that was very enlightening. There was a lot of information that we learned a lot about a lot of different topics that when we drove home, we were just talking about what we learned. So
it answers a lot of gripes and complaints that we have as outdoorsmen and hunters as well. So
there was that there too.
Yeah, and
that's the environment to bring them up.
And it happened naturally though. People didn't have to bring them up. They were just talking about whatever the topic is, and it answered the questions, a lot of them that you had about things. So
we didn't go into the hunter's ed. So we talked about licenses, which I thought we should start there. You can't hunt in Texas without your license. I mean, it's
regardless of age.
So that was one of the questions. Hey, I'm taking my 14-year-old daughter with me. Does she need a license if I'm going this and this and that? Great job on answering that, because that was one of the questions. The next one, and Jimmy just let's cover the most common violations, and that's the hunter's ed.
Hunter education. So law hasn't changed for years. Individuals born on or after September 2nd, 1971 are required to have hunter's education certified, whether it be Texas or any other state. There's reciprocity for hunter education criteria. In the last I checked, I don't even think there's a state that's not reciprocal. So if you're certified in Texas, great. Texas certification goes all the other states, and of course those states, I believe all of them, if not all of them, maybe one or two deficient, are reciprocity here. So if you're certified from another state, you have it here as well. You have to maintain proof if in fact you're not a Texas certified student, because we can't see other states. So the criteria, if you were born on or after September 2nd, 1971, you need to have that proof of hunter's education to hunt, period, end of story. And there are some options, because the department doesn't want to deprive our hunters from hunting. You get some new recruits that you want to take out there and introduce them into this, this pastime and this sport. And last minute, they don't have hunter's ed, and you as a responsible hunter understand that your recruit needs to have it, and they just can't, even though there's a plethora of options to get certified, most of them which can be found online on our website. Sometimes you just don't have the time, because you're trying to get in an opportunity to go the next day, the next week, and it just doesn't line up. So individuals can purchase, should they choose, a deferment. And that deferment's good for 1 year. And when you purchase that deferment, there's a few provisions in there. One of which is you have to be accompanied by a licensed adult who meets the criteria for hunter's ed, either by exemption or certification. Okay, that's one criteria. The other is that even though you have to buy that deferment, you've got 1 year to take the course, and then your course is discounted. So you're not paying twice.
Wow.
So your deferment, last I checked, because I haven't bought one, but the last I checked, the deferment's $15.
Man, I don't even remember there being a charge for it back in the day. I don't know.
Now the deferment and the certification are two different things. So the deferment, I believe, is, and I'm going to look while we're talking, the deferment, I believe, is $15. The certification is also $15.
Wow.
So you get certified for hunter's education, paying $15, and then you're certified for life, assuming that student is 9 years age or older.
Yeah, it's been a while, but
I think
hunter
I was 9
education
when I did
deferment
mine.
is $10. I'm looking
Even
at
better.
this year's outdoor annual. So I believe your discount is the $5 because they've already taken into account. So maybe things have changed, but the in-person cost is $15 for the certification. The deferment's $10. And then,
Man,
of course, I'm looking at page 5 of the current outdoor
you
annual.
pay more in credit card fees, bro. I mean, what are you not doing? Like, go get your hunter's ed.
I mean, there's really no excuse if
Right.
if the cost is that low and you can purchase a deferment for 1 year. I mean, you can find if you want to hunt,
Go with
within-
someone who's certified.
Right.
Go with someone who
and then
has
with-
an exemption.
within a 1 year time period, you have time. Like,
I'll take it one step further for you just to kind of clear it up. So that deferment, those provisions of accompanied, right? Accompanied by a licensed adult by exemption or certification, that a company is defined by normal voice range. You have to hunt in close proximity, depending on the type of hunting. If you're hunting dove in the field, you just stay close. The reason why you're accompanied is to make sure that you're safe, legal, and ethical, right?
Right.
And then, of course, if you're hunting change species, if you're hunting deer, you might be in a blind. I wouldn't necessarily think that you're up in the tree stand together, but it's possible. But you're in close proximity. Normal voice range is how that definition of accompanied is in there.
That's good.
But I'll take it. The icing on the cake is this. We talked about 15 plus 10. What was that? $25.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that even though the citation is a fix-it ticket, you're
wow.
you're
I didn't know
cited.
that.
You're cited for no hunter's education, and you bring it up to the court and you make reference to, hey, I would like to look at my options. I understand that there may be some possibilities of getting out of the fine. You can, if you meet the criteria by statute. So you have to do it within so many days. You have to request it, and then you jump through all the hoops. At the end of the day, you're still paying an administrative fee. That administrative fee very well is probably more than
the fine.
the $25.
And then we're not even covering the fine.
If, in fact, you don't succeed in jumping through all the hoops, you may be fined, and then that's definitely more than $25.
Sure.
Plus the administrative fees.
Correct.
So it just pays to go and get your hunter's ed.
100%.
And guys, I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you have a kid, someone new to hunting, you're bringing some friends in from out of state, they want to hunt with you, this and that, they will learn so much from that course. I've seen animated options online.
Yeah, there's online options.
Heck, you just had a course over the weekend, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. So check with your local game warden, check online, and just Google hunter's education course. I'm telling you, there's some options for you. It's not worth getting the potential of paying a fine.
Not at all.
Well, I mean, before you go into your questions, I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. It's kind of an icebreaker for you.
You want to cover some dove
Okay.
stuff since we're coming into dove season?
Well, let's do it.
Okay.
But this one was the first question brought in, and it was absolutely perfect timing for really the whole season.
Yeah, a lot of these are too.
This one said, and I was going to give...
Who was it?
It was Stephen King. Stephen King. He says, can you ask the game wardens if they can share their location 24/7, their GPS location?
Yeah. We actually do.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Well,
shared.
I wasn't expecting
We
that.
were I
just
said
caught
I'm
me
gonna
off guard.
catch him off guard with this and
Yeah.
it just kind of break the ice. But
The only difference is that the only people that can share
Oh.
or see my location is those that I share it with.
that's right. Yeah, you're
There you go.
absolutely right. So
but
good point.
there are lots of folks that actually know my location based on this modern
I
technology.
would imagine, yeah. We talk about using Life 360 and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So, but I thought it was a funny. It was the first question. Hey, can you tell them to share their GPS location? Tell me where they're going to be
just
opening
wanna
weekend.
know.
Tell them to send a note. You
Yeah,
you got to get to know me.
So, I'm going to start off with the easy ones. Dove season's right around the corner. I think one of my first encounters with you out in the field was you were just out doing your job. You came out to us out in the field, and I know you walked up. You saw my truck parked. It was public hunting. It was a public hunting land access. I had my permit and everything, and you showed up. You saw my truck. I think you might have saw there was DV plates on it, so you already knew I'm gonna kid up here, and I'm probably gonna see. There's no reason for him not to have a super combo, right? So I don't have to. You know what I'm saying? That's
You better
another
have
thing.
it. If you-
Exactly.
if
So
you got
you
DV
showed up,
plates.
and I remember you mentioned that, and I that's when I knew how observant you guys are, just kind of approaching your thing. And I told everybody in the group, hey, let's clear our shotguns. So you came up, you saw that, and right off, it was kind of like, okay, I see that they're aware I'm here, so they're aware of the surroundings. They're actually
Correct.
probably doing the right thing.
Yep.
So right off the bat, you were just super cool with us, and you're like, all right, how you guys doing? You know, any luck today? This kind of that. That was our first encounter. It's not always like that, and I'm not going to speak for everybody's encounter with the Game Warden. I'm not going to speak for every Game Warden out there. But it was a very pleasant encounter with you, and you checked our weapons. You checked plugs.
Your sporting arms.
Sporting arms, yeah. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I got to be careful, especially when I'm
Yeah.
typing it on social media. So you checked our sporting arms. You checked our plugs. You made sure, is this what you're shooting? Yep. All right. And you loaded and you checked and you were having a conversation. And as you're doing that, two hunters pop up out of the field, man, and they start bolted. And I remember you grabbed your binos and you're like, all right. And I remember you had the conversation with me, like, I see your DV plate, so I assume you have a super combo. I was like, yeah, so give you my stuff. You took a look. Hunter's Ed showed you a snapshot of it. And I had it saved to my phone as a file. He was like, all right, cool. You guys are good. He's like, I think I'm busy. And he took off. But, I mean, you never know what you encounter as a game warden and all that stuff. So I tell people all the time, hey, when you see the game warden come up, now, if you're hunting a fixed rifle, it's a different clearing your sporting arm there. It's a courtesy. It wouldn't hurt. There's people that say, oh, I'm hunting them in the blind. The game warden's coming up. They're bothering me, blah, blah, blah. Man, it's not hunter harassment when the game warden's coming up. Most of them are probably better outdoorsmen than you are when they're not working.
Or they often wait too, right? I mean,
There's
but dove hunting's different.
Dove
Yeah.
hunting's different, man.
Yeah.
It's a shotgun. It's
100%.
a sporting arm.
Yeah.
But you came out and you do that. So like I'm talking particularly about like the things that everybody forgets. The plug.
okay.
You got a 3 shot
Restricted to 3.
restricted
Yeah, that-
during dove season.
Mark that off. That
Dove and waterfowl. So any migratory
Waterfowl,
game,
absolutely.
any migratory game bird is a restriction of no more than 3.
Other than sandhill crane? No,
So
conservation. Right.
yes. So the extent or the conservation goose season,
Yes.
those restrictions are null and void during that conservation season for goose or geese. So any waterfowl, any rails, gallinules, coots, mergansers, and then of course your dove, and of course our dove is morning, white wing, and white fronted or white tipped. Those are going to be a legal shotgun. The only legal means is, the only legal firearm is a shotgun restricted to 3 shells.
So that answers that question. It was just like, do I have to have a plug? Yes, you have to have a plug, or your shotgun has to be restricted to 3 shells.
Yeah.
So if you can load that 4th one in, and the game warden comes out and he gets that 4th shot in there, it's a good indication you don't have a plug in, and that's the law.
So
Bottom line.
When you talked about the other dove species, is there a special permit that you have to hunt those?
So the species, you're talking about the non-game dove, for instance. So the 3 that I listed were the white wing, the mourning dove, and the white tipped or the white fronted, whichever lingo you use. There are a few other species, some of which are illegal to shoot, Inca dove being one of them, okay, versus Eurasian collared dove, feral rock pigeon, right, your common pigeon. Those two are not regulated by anything.
They're non-game.
They are non-game. And now, those particular species don't count for your bag limit for your game, okay? Now, that being said, you need to make sure that they're identifiable. So, there's nothing wrong with taking your limit, your 15 birds, and having them in the state of preservation for consumption, right? You can clean them in the field. You don't necessarily have to worry about winging or keeping a wing for identification purposes unless you're over your limit. And then you need to have some type of identification that says, hey, this was an exotic. This was a dove. This was a pigeon. This was a Eurasian.
Say that louder so they can hear you in the back.
Yep.
Do I need to say it again?
Yeah.
I think so.
And the provisions for that wing typically is for waterfowl. But put yourselves in our shoes. Even though it doesn't say you have to keep a feathered wing for dove, if you've got you're hunting day one, or let's just say you're hunting, I don't want to use day one as an example, but you're hunting on a given day during dove season and you've got 15 birds in your possession. If you're going to exceed that number, which it is possible, you need to have one or two things to verify lawfulness.
Okay.
If you've got 20 birds and all 20 were taken by you as the legal hunter, 5 of those birds better be identifiable. Okay? So the identification is, you've got 20 birds. I can probably look at it and say, yeah, it's obvious that could have been a pigeon based on size of the breast. That's all I'm looking at.
Sure.
Okay? Could have been a pigeon. Could have been a potentially could have been a Eurasian collared. Okay?
Right.
But it most likely might not be a white wing or a white wing or mourning dove based on size. Now, you could very well also have a juvenile mourning dove, and it could be the size of an Inca dove if it was breasted out. Okay, and Inca doves are illegal, right? So again, I'm looking for, or we as game wardens are looking for compliance. And what do we show? We have 15 birds in possession. Fantastic. Anything greater than that, we need to start asking questions. Why do we have 20 birds in this one bag? The other exception to that particular rule is, let's say that you're hunting with a companion. Dove hunting is very social. You hunt as a group, you hunt as people, but the law prohibits you from transferring birds in the field, okay, while you're hunting. But when the hunt's over, and if the 3 of us go hunting, and for whatever reason, I don't want to use me as going back to work. I'm not in the field hunting as a game warden with my buddies when I'm going to go to work per se.
Right.
But you've got 3 individuals who are hunting in the field, and one of them has to go to work. And so that individual relays his or her bag to one of the partners. They go home. Let's say all 3 of them have a limit. So one of you goes home with your 15 birds. The other one of you goes home with 30 birds if you're limiting out on given day. As long as the hunter who's not present provides a wildlife resource document that has all the required information, the person in possession of 30 birds that day is not in violation.
Can that be found online?
It could be found online. It could be found in the back of your outdoor annual. It could be written down on a piece of paper, but what you're looking for is basically the name, phone number, address, and of the person who is the legal hunter, and then of course the same type of information for the person in possession, or who's going to be in possession of them, whether it's a donation or just get these home, plus the identification of what it is that you're transferring. I state my name, living at this place, my phone number is here. State my buddy's name, address, etc. 15 dove, cleaned, breasted out. That were caught on this date at this location.
This place.
Yeah. So it's a generalized thing, and it can be written on any type of document, whether you use it, a written copy, or you just type one on the phone and take it. As long as you. I
was going to ask what a text, because there was a gentleman. I don't have it pulled up right now, but he had that question. He said, if I have 30 dove on my tailgate, and we're
Okay.
taking pictures. But it's a and I think that sometimes there's more to the story than you get in a,
Well, keep going, because I know where we're going to go with this one.
So he's saying, if I got 30 dove on my tailgate and we take pictures with it, but there's only, say, I'm the only guy in there, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But then you get somebody that goes on a white bass charter and they got 100 fish and they're only allowed to have 50 and they don't get contacted by Game Warden. Why do I?
So commingling of the resource. Okay. So, and we see this in social type settings, dove hunting, fishing, where you have the opportunity to harvest multiple numbers of the same species or different species or whatever you're pursuing. What you need to remember is this, and I educate a lot of folks every single season. If you are, let's say 2 hunters show up, or let's just say that there's a group of hunters around one particular vehicle in the field. Each hunter is responsible for maintaining their possession and keeping them in edible condition. So if the 3 of us show up in one truck and we're using said truck to keep our birds in edible condition, out of the field for the fire ants,
Sure.
Maybe even in a cooler in the truck, okay, whatever the case may be. And with the temperatures these days, we probably want to put them in a cooler.
Yeah.
But as long as they are maintained in separate piles, somehow, whether it's fish, whether it's birds, so I can say, okay, whose birds are in this particular bucket versus whose birds are in the corner of this tailgate versus whose birds are behind the driver's seat, whatever the case may be, as long as that is separated by person. Yeah. So when I come in there and I see, if I come up to a truck and on the tailgate, there's a pile of birds. If I have to reach in and pull out a bird and say, whose is this? And they're like, I don't know. That's everybody's.
Same thing with fish, then, I would think.
Fish do the same thing. What I encourage people doing with fish is mark them, assuming that you're going to retain them for consumption. If you catch your fish, if you notch a tail, and if you notch a dorsal fin, I know whose is whose. Or if it's just 2 of you, the ones that are notched are mine, the ones that aren't notched are his.
That's great advice. Okay. That's great advice.
So as long as if they're housed in the same compartment, just be able to tell me who, or tell us, because I'm not the only game warden here, and especially across the state. As long as you can answer to whose is this, you guys are going to be pretty good.
One of those fish in that cooler could have shrunk a half or quarter inch.
Nobody wants to claim the undersize or
sure, but I'm using that as an example. It's right below the limit.
Yeah.
Or the minimum.
Something's wrong with the fish that makes it a violation. Now,
sure.
Whose is it?
Now, whose is it? Now, you had them all thrown in one ice chest. They're in there. Of course, everyone's going to be like, no, we measured them before we pulled them in the boat, and that happens.
It does.
And they do shrink, or they do, I don't know.
They get misidentified.
Yeah.
You've got an undersized stripe or hybrid bass instead of a white bass.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
That's a big
so
deal.
misidentification. Same thing with your bird. You thought it was a Eurasian and it turned out to be, something different.
Well, you can't get those kind of mixed up, but white tip and even those. But I know there's a lot of dove hunters out there just seeing some birds flying and they're just going to knock them down.
So
black dove, red dove.
I'm not a big dove hunter, but what should a guy do? So I don't dove hunt a lot. Say I go out and I shoot over I shoot 2 white-winged dove. What do I do? Or 3? What's the limit? 2? 2.
White-tipped. You can
So,
only have 2 in your bag.
So if I accidentally shoot 3, what do I need to do?
Maintain it in your possession and own it when we show up. But outside of that, if you're shooting in this part of the country, in this central part of the state, in the 6 years I've been here in Bell County, I've seen 1. So if you're shooting 3 on a good day, more power to you, because it's going to be not the norm.
Yeah.
But in some areas, just like with our populations, they're expanding. So I've seen 1 in 6 years. That's the only one. Well, it's the only one I've seen in the field, bird in hand. I've seen others in the area, but they weren't harvested by hunters. So if in fact they're getting more prolific, then we need to start talking about what do we do. And that goes for not only your your game birds, right? Your limit birds. But what about those individuals that mistakenly shoot something that they're not supposed to shoot?
I would think that could be common with ducks. Once again, I'm not a big bird hunter.
But what do you think happens? I'll tell you. I want your perspective.
What do you think? They just toss them, or
they don't maintain possession? And what do you think is going to happen when that happens when we're watching?
You're just racking up more violations at that point.
So is there like this is this may be a stupid question, but you just answered it, maintaining your possession. So there's no ethical way. So like I shot one extra dove, and you're watching me from afar. You see me as a hunter, and he's like, all right, when you see me out there, I'm counting my tether, which, by the way, I got those up there where we keep our tether. He asked us, by the way, his question for the Game Wardens is, how do I get the Game Wardens to endorse my my dove cord? I was like, yeah, good question. But it does keep you within your legal limit because there's only 15 tethers on there, and that's easy. But you're watching me from afar. You got your glass on me, and you see me out there, and I do what I think is ethical.
Okay.
I'm going to bury it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm going to just dig a hole in the ground. I'm going to bury this bird. I'm going to cover it. I'm not harvesting it. Is that illegal?
Okay.
Because, now if you saw me from afar and I did it, and it's one bird, and I took that extra bird, I counted, I have one bird, I drop it. Now, if I sit there and I'm doing that and there's 6 birds and I just keep shooting, I'm making some unethical shots.
Okay, yeah.
But this was I would say that's ethical.
So
your question said harvested. Once that bird is dead and down, it has been harvested.
Understood.
Okay.
All right.
So the ethical dilemma is you don't want to be in possession of it, so you bury it. Is burying a resource reasonable? It's one way to dispose of a carcass.
Sure.
But why are you going to waste that game? Because you don't want to be in violation of over your bag limit, so therefore you waste the game. So would you rather be in violation for over your limit or in violation for waste of game?
Yeah.
Now you're on both because he's seen you do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing is I brought it up as a good scenario, right? Because a lot of people. Well, here's what a lot of hunters don't understand. And I'm kind of giving it away here, but you're being watched. Sometimes you're being watched from afar, and you think you're doing the right thing, or you think you're gonna get away with it. That game warden already has the answer by the time they show up.
When they ask questions that. When they act,
hey, come on now.
Well, what I want to say is,
and it happens on Lone Star Law. People don't learn from watching it, or people.
I have learned things the hard way, and what I have learned is being honest and ownership of things tend to get you a little better off than.
I think it does, and that would be an easy conversation to have with the game warden. They show up, I always take it as like, when you come to me, you know the answer already. That's how I look at it. You know what I mean? Like, you're coming to do your job. You probably saw me from far away. You know I'm here. I know there's a guy over there. There's a guy over there. They're outdoorsmen, man. They're not idiots. You know what I mean? And people are like, they think they're gonna pull slick. I was like, I didn't catch any fish. There ain't no. What are you talking about? That's bait. Or those fish are swimming.
Yeah,
and
those are my pet fish. I brought them down for a swim.
Come on, we've seen the videos. We've seen all the jokes. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to lie your way out of it instead of saying, hey, yeah, man, I shot one extra, and then. Yeah. That's a teachable moment. Sometimes that teachable moment comes with a violation and a ticket.
Well, I think that you've heard the term born again, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, I always figured we had property.
Yeah.
And I never liked the fact that it was state animals, it was resources or whatever. Mm-hmm. My mentality was it's on our property, that's ours.
Sure.
And until you grow a little bit older and you realize the conservation effort and the maintaining of numbers and species and things like that, so it makes you a born-again outdoorsman, if you will. Like, you just have to understand it. And I think the educational purposes of it is a huge part of what you guys do, too, with, just community programs and outreach things that you guys do. And that's what it took for me to realize it and be like, okay, maybe they're not my animals. They're everybody.
They belong to the state, or, in the regulations are state or federal, right? So it's a government or a state resource,
right?
Depending on the restrictions. But those privileges as you being a property owner. Yes, it's your property. You can do what you're wanting to do as long as it's within the confines of what's regulated. To use that, or to use those, or to consume or take those resources. But I'll tell you, and I'll give you an example about your, the lawfulness of these limits. Mm-hmm. So Jimmy said it, honesty is the best policy when it comes to enforcement decisions. I approach you as a bird hunter or a group of bird hunters, and you are still actively hunting. And I've already seen you drop your limit, and you're still actively hunting. Whether you're one bird over, whether you're 10 birds over, you're still actively hunting, and I'm aware of it, hypothetically. Your bag may reflect 15 because you were slick enough to not maintain your possession, or you're doing what's unlawful and giving them to somebody else. But when I show up, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and you're going to say what you're going to say.
Got it.
So versus you were hunting, you had 14 birds in your tether, right?
Yep.
Your dove cord. And for whatever reason, that last shot for that 15th bird, and this has happened in the field, I've seen it, and I've educated folks. You drop a double. So now you're hanging your head low because you just exceeded your
incidental.
You just exceeded your bag limit, and now you filled your 15 cords, right? But you've got that one. Is your hunt over, or are you going to still hunt? Depending on timing and circumstance, if you're leaving your hunt with your head down, and I show up and you said, man, my hunt's it was going good until my last shot, and you tell me your story, and the timing was such that I just saw it, which has happened, my enforcement decision might be a whole lot different than you did the exact same thing, but you're still hunting. And when I show up, you're like, man, I just got my limit. I was just now wrapping it up. When I know that wasn't the case, now it's going to be a different enforcement decision.
I think there's also some confusion, and I see this on hunting shows and YouTube channels and things. Say me and Ben go out hunting. He's a crack shot. I can't hit a dove to save my life. He hits his limit in, first box. I'm on box 3.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I'm going to help you out, and you're going to get your limit. Mm-hmm. I seen that filmed and published on big name things. So, I mean, that's a complete no-go. So
you are correct.
So
that is a no-go.
Just so everybody knows, you can't do that.
Right.
Even though you see it on TV, it's still illegal.
Yeah. And that's why I say, man, I brought this out just to simply show it. I mean, it's 15 tethers. I can't go over my limit. If I limit this out, I've hit my limit. It's time to stop hunting. Now, can you clarify possession?
Okay. Well, one thing, that is your daily limit.
That was where I was getting at.
Okay. So your bag limit is by the day.
Mm-hmm.
September 1 comes on Friday. You're out there Friday morning, assuming that you're with the rest of the nation that wants to get out there, and it's a holiday for Friday. So everybody that's got the time off of work and they're going to be in the field, they start at legal shooting hours and they limit out for 15. That doesn't mean go home and come back out in the evening and do it again.
Yeah.
If you put 15 birds in that tether, you're done for the day. The next day, because it's a holiday weekend, we got Friday. We got a 4-day weekend coming up. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right? Most people, well, unless they don't take Friday off, most people are going to hunt 3, minimum 4 days. That first day, it's 15. That second day, assuming you haven't gone home, went to your final destination, whatever the case may be, you have your possession. So your possession the second day is second day is going to be 30 because you have it. Now, there are, I believe now, and let me not lie to you. In my mind, I want to say one thing, but I do not want to confuse anybody, so just let me verify. Possession for migratory birds, because I do recall there being a change not too long ago. Just bear with me. That's ducks.
And this stands the same with fish as well.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
So I'm strictly making reference to
migratory
doves.
bird. Okay.
Doves specifically, because the numbers are going to be different between the migratory species, right? Dove is 15 daily. Ducks are typically 6 daily. So your numbers are going to be a little bit different. But as I recalled, your possession limit is 3 times your daily. Okay. It used to be historically twice your daily.
Okay.
So now we're looking at 45 birds. Okay. So you basically have a 3-day possession limit to be in compliance.
But possession is defined by before processed or before in cold storage.
Okay. So possession is only defined, or excuse me, that regulation only applies to prior to reaching final destination.
There you go.
Final destination could be cold storage, if in fact you're going to have them processed at a cold storage facility and finally processed. For dove, finally processed is pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Once they're breasted out, they're finally processed,
right,
for the most part. But if you are in the field and you have not gone home yet, you're stuck at 3 days limit. For a 3-day weekend, that's pretty easy. But for a 4th day, you got to get creative a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that there was people that, like, for instance, we sometimes during a dove season, I'll especially these past few seasons, I won't when it's good and they're flying.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much making dove poppers that day.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, because I know that, hey, they're flying, I can go get some more. He goes, when it starts to get, and I'm like not really bagging every time I go out, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna put them aside, and I'm gonna have a cookout, and I'm gonna bring everybody over, and everybody's gonna have poppers, and it's gonna be enough. So if my freezer is full of, say, more than 45, I'll use that as a perfect number. I'm perfectly legal to have more than that count.
Correct, because you're at final destination. Your freezer is final destination. You come home, whether you eat them or freeze them, you're home. Yeah. You're no longer in the field. The next day starts over. The only way that the possession becomes an issue is if you are on an extended hunt for more than 3 days.
That's what I was going to ask is some folks, you may go out and camp. Say you go out and camp somewhere on and everybody's schedule was different, or they take vacation for dove season.
Yeah.
People are passionate about it. And they're on a camp somewhere in a WMA or some public land somewhere. Is that camp considered final destination if they have it in a cooler?
It is not.
Okay.
But
good.
But there's a legal way to meet, or at least ease that burden, because the burden is, right, if you're out there for an extended hunt, and I'm going to use 4 days
this is a perfect example.
I'm going to say 4 days minimum, okay,
right,
because the possession limit is 3 days. So if the 3 of us go hunting and we're going to go for let's say a 4 or 5 day trip, and we limit out on day 1 at camp, there's nothing prohibiting us to eating those 15 times 3, those 45 birds that night. Yep. So we know that we're here for 3 or 4 more days. We limit it out on day 1. We know that we can't travel back with more than 45. So let's eat tonight. Let's make those poppers, right? And then tomorrow we start all over. And we do that until if we know, based on the resources is thriving and we're doing really good, then we're going to basically eat those poppers or dove, however you're cooking them.
Sure.
Until we can maintain this 45 possession.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with consuming your game while you're in the field. You just can't be in possession of more than that 45 limit while you're there. Man,
that's a lot of the questions that we had come in for dove season. One was, do I have to keep a wing on my breast? It's a very, you got to keep the wing on. I've never really done that. I strip them down to the breast in the field, and I'm taking those breasts home cold. I'm glad you clarified that, because it's always been an argument. No, you got to keep a wing on. I got to keep a wing on if I'm over,
it's recommended that you keep a wing for that.
But it's to identify. It's for identifying, you know.
And that wing is predominantly for waterfowl. I'm looking right here, except
that's why I just don't shoot dove.
Man, I love them.
No, I don't shoot for personal reasons.
Here's the regulation on page 59. It's clear. This is black and white. Processing of migratory game birds, except for migratory game birds processed at a cold storage or processing facility, one fully feathered wing or head must remain attached to dressed migratory game birds, except doves.
It's in black and
while
white.
being transported between blah blah blah.
Tired of arguing that one, bro.
So I knew
I'm going down. I'm going for some ammo this time when I talk to my cousins, man.
So we talked about that, and that provision is for migratory game birds, doves being the exception, and there it is in black and white in this year's outdoor annual.
Awesome, man.
So let's roll through some of the other ones that are not as. Or is there anything more to dove that you would like to add?
I'll tell you, while we talked about licensing and hunter education deficiencies, right? And the most common problem for doves specifically, as far as your licensure is concerned, make sure you're HIP certified.
Yes.
Okay. Make sure if you piece your license together, we have plenty of options available to buy. If you're not buying a super combo and you need to save a buck here and there, you buy a resident or non-resident hunting license for this state, and you plan on hunting migratory game birds, make sure you get the proper endorsement.
Oh, that's what I was alluding to earlier, and then we went off topic.
So migratory game bird endorsement, if your super combo comes with everything.
It does.
If you don't buy your super combo and you're hunting dove, make sure you have your HIP certification, your migratory game bird endorsement. Those are that's what we're checking for. And then of course, hunter education as it pertains to those.
That's what makes it, we have to do a lot of research because we get people that want to come hunt with us and they'll contact us out of state and say, what do I need? Man, look it up. But okay, let me look this up for you. But you also have to say, hey, you take ownership of this.
And there's options too. You can do there's day hunting permits, 3-day hunting. I don't know about, I know like when I travel, I look for those. As a resident here, I don't know that off the top of my head, but like
they're right here.
We just talked about, last time we bumped into each other, I was taking my travel to Florida.
Yes.
Had a great time. Took your advice on some places to stop. It was an amazing trip.
Awesome.
I'll be going back. But along the way, of course, I'm going to stop. I mean, I'm going to fish. I didn't hunt, but I fished everywhere I went, and I looked at the law, man.
Like Bob Mandel said, man.
Yeah.
Fishing is hunting.
Yeah, you're right. So I looked at the law, and I said, man, okay, 3-day pass, or I know I'm going that way, I'm coming back. It probably benefits me to have a 7-day or whatever. I looked at it, and I made sure I was within my law. Now, I will say this. I did learn that Florida had some peculiar fishing laws that we don't have down here pertaining to hooks and something like things. I was like, wow, but again, look at the law.
Is it circle hooks and
circle hooks? Yeah. It was weird, but I was just like, oh man, well, all right. Going off subject there, but yeah.
So that's about it for dove.
Okay, we'll roll into a couple of questions. Here's one that is kind of interesting to me, and I thought I couldn't agree with him more. And the question is from Leon Farr. He said, if hogs are such a problem, why not open up more opportunities to take them on public land? A lot with archery-only areas only allow shotgun hunting during the off seasons of February through August. So I guess he's saying, why can't we go into public more often other than archery only to hunt hogs only?
Okay. So I will address that question specifically with, obviously hogs are a nuisance. And the provisions have already been minimized based on you don't need to have a hunting license. What we're not requiring individuals that are taking these nuisance animals for not only recreational purposes but for depredation purposes to have a hunting license.
Trying to get rid of the herd.
Okay, well, even trying to get rid of the herd, regardless of where you are, I would speculate, and that's all I can do based on what I'm hearing, is he's saying, well, why do we have these public places that won't allow us to do these other types of things? and it's speculation on my part, but I would venture to say, or it's a matter of safety. So our public areas, and I don't know which ones he's making reference to, but
I'm not sure either.
I will use
WMA or something.
I will use two different surrounding areas. So the Corps of Engineers has public property available in Bell County. Their regulations vary depending on time of day, but they are predominantly for small game and waterfowl in their defined designated areas, and it's shotgun only. There's absolutely no deer hunting legal allowed based on regulations by the Corps, and there's a special rule in effect, the Goodnight Law, in this area that prohibits deer in those hunting deer in those areas. But there are occasions where people do hunt feral hogs. That's their issue as far as regulations are concerned. We're just going to check compliance. So compare those public lands with the next closest one I can think of is Granger Wildlife Management Area.
Granger's,
It's a part of the public hunting permit, the $48 permit that the state allows access to 1.2 million acres last I checked, Granger being one of them. And you can go in there to that particular location and use specifically defined means and methods. And I don't know if that's archery only. I don't know if it's shotgun. I don't know because
We'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't work
public
Williamson
knowledge,
County.
yeah.
Okay. So, but we do have the opportunity to do that, but there's rules associated with it. So, and again, that's for safety. Hunter orange is a criteria for public hunting within that program. If you're not hunting migratory game birds or turkey, I believe you have to, turkey is the exception because they see a color. You are required to have hunter's orange, 44 square inches on your chest, and of course a hat. But we do have options for you to hunt them, I believe. I just don't know what they're restricted to, but that's a public hunting place. And again, this is all speculation. I'm not sure what his question is.
It's very broad, but it is a good in general. Like if they're such a nuisance, why are we not opening? Because
we're limiting
1.8. You said acres.
1.2 for the public hunting
1.2,
program.
That sounds like a lot, but in Texas it's not. You know, and if our public land is being let's be real. I mean, they're just putting more houses up everywhere we look. I mean, that's just really what's happening.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
And that's allowing our public hunting access to be, I won't say diminished, but it's being considerably getting smaller and smaller year after year.
And that's kind of a segue into, we had a small conversation before we got the camera going about SB 1236, and that a lot of people feel shrinks the public land access. Yeah, so
so that access for that particular provision is still available. However, there have been newly imposed restrictions.
Right. So yeah, it's still available. It just restricts certain activities.
It restricts certain means and methods for certain types of resources.
Better way. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll leave that one just kind of where it's at there. It's new, you know, and we'll get through it.
But it's a learning curve for everyone.
You got it.
There you go. So I mean, you gotta read the regulation. You gotta read the black and white. Be on the right side of that, and that saves you a lot of pain there. Public land hunting access. You know, I think that's a good one. Do you have a question surrounding that? If not, I do.
As far as access?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing, one gentleman, and I think this is probably, I mean, he sent a picture to go along with it out of a publication, and I don't know exactly which one it is, but I'll read the question. This is from Marlon Robinson. He said, I would like someone to elaborate on where I can park in a WMA. In the booklet, and I'm going to assume this booklet is for this particular WMA, which I don't know which one it is.
Each page has its own map, right?
And it says, in this booklet, it says you can park on the side of a designated road as long as you're not blocking or impeding traffic or blocking a gate. And then in the other part of it, it contradicts itself, and it says you can only park in designated areas. So is he allowed to park on the side of the road, to me, that tells you that that's a designated parking area if it says it in one portion of the booklet.
So can I look at your image that he sent so I can see what we're looking at? Because I want to make sure it's part of the public hunting program. That's okay.
So if it came out of the book, it looks like it's probably out of the book that we get when you get your public hunting
the
access
permit.
permit.
APH.
Yeah. Which is also on the app.
That's what I assume it is. I just don't want to say that's what it is because
Right.
I'm not 100% sure.
Based on what I'm seeing here and some of the language that I'm seeing and the actual numbers that he snapshot, this is the, it appears to me, and I'm not 100% certain, I'm 90+% confident that this is the portion in the beginning of the public hunting lands map booklet under the prohibited acts. He's highlighted this, what you just questioned. The highlight, it says, does not confine motor vehicle use designated roads, including electric bicycles. Okay, then you have your question. So in that particular program, each one of those areas has defined locations. They define where you can hunt, where you can't hunt.
check-in point.
That's exactly right. Check-in point, whether it's required daily, whether it's required during certain times. And then, of course, where you can cross over, per se, fences. And then, of course, parking. So I think, Ben, I think you said it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, I'm not sure. One of you said it depends on the area. Mm-hmm. So overall, yes, you can only park in defined areas. Some of those individual areas are going to have designated roadways through the unit, right?
Yeah.
We refer to those options, those public hunting lands, as units. Mm-hmm. Everyone has their own unit number and name.
Number, right.
Okay. So those units have, or at least some of them have designated roads. And some of those units are so vast, you don't have a choice but to park.
Yeah, you have to.
In the bar ditch per se. But as long as you're not blocking gates and the roads, I think you're covered.
The reason why I'm laughing is because people are so funny, man. So they'll share, they'll ask a question about a unit, and they're so protective.
They don't want you to know which one.
They don't want you to know. And they'll put like a unit number instead of the name.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to find out, man. Like, and some of it gives it away. Like when you're talking about certain things, say you have to have a youth with you or something like that, because there are stipulations at certain units. You can tell based off of the county. I know where you're talking about, but like some people they're just so funny about sharing a location, or they blur out a background in a photo, and there's a giant landmark in the back. Like, I know where that tower is at.
Man, speaking of youth, you know how like it's almost pumpkin spice latte season. It's almost season to see all the youth hunters with the big Boone and Crockett deer and stuff.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, yeah, my boy got a good one this year.
Yeah, he did.
Good job, Pops.
Yeah, you took him to a spot where only the youth, or you can only hunt there if you have a youth with you. That's
cool, though. I mean, I like to see it. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's always questionable.
You got the biggest deer of your life at 8 years old.
Yeah.
That's an ethical dilemma.
Yeah. So, we had another one with
public hunting, I think.
Yeah, and it was, I remember, and it was Marcus Ledesma asked, I'm going to find it just so that I can quote him, and I said I would. It was based off a public hunting permit. If I get a pass, here we are. If I purchase a permit for a certain area, do I have to buy another permit if I want to go elsewhere? Or if I get a permit, am I the only one who can hunt or fish in that area? Can I take my 12-year-old son?
Okay, so there's a little bit of, I got to make sure that I set the information, because we're talking about verbiage and we're talking about passes and permits.
Shout out Marcus Ledesma for dropping that question. Thank you.
Okay. So he did not specify that this was the public hunting permit.
Correct.
If, in fact, he's making reference to the $48 annual public hunting permit, that permit entitles him and any youth adult with him, okay, because the youth under the age of 17 don't have to buy that permit. They have to have a hunting license, but they don't have to have that permit.
That's good information.
Yeah.
So if his youth hunter,
son? Yep.
I didn't catch the age. If his 12-year-old son is with him and they bought that permit and they choose to go to any of those locations throughout that book, then they have that privilege and right, as do anybody else that buys the same permit. Depending on the unit, it may be first come, first serve. Depending on how the hunt, any criteria in there. I'll tell you that some of those have e-postcards. They're actually drawings, and you can only go if you get selected. Mm-hmm. But you have to have that permit before you can apply. Mm-hmm. So, yes, if you have that permit, you can go. And you can go to any one of those in that book, but so can everybody else. Mm-hmm. Depending on which one you are making reference to, you may be one of few at that particular facility based on provisions put through in the book. And again, some of the examples are a youth hunt for, I'm trying to remember, because I'll tell you, I just applied for some opportunities to go. You have that particular permit and you want to go down and hunt an opportunity for multi-species. There was one for multi-species. They're going to draw names based on whoever applies, and there's only set number, and I'll say 6 to 10 spots. You're going to have that area to yourselves for that particular set of dates for those 6 to 10 individuals that are on there, versus you buy that permit and you want to hunt deer at the forest land over there, Sam Houston National Forest. They've got special provisions over there. You may be one of 100 people on the given day. It's 162. Don't get me.
But it's your privilege to hunt that as well.
Correct. But at that point, it's first come, first serve.
Right. Which is going to make great content for this year.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna. You remember the gentleman last year that took the red stag out of there, Sam Houston.
Sam Houston.
I don't recall that off the top of my head, but
so there was a gentleman that took a red stag and ended up it was confiscated by the game warden. So he commented. He said, "Can you just ask him how I can get my Euro mount back?" I felt so it was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
Another one of those gray area type deals.
So was he cited? Do we know?
He was cited for like the most minuscule thing that he could have been cited for, but it was one of those.
It was an honest mistake, but he was in violation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably saved him a bunch of money by saying, "Hey, we're going to get you for this," but.
Yeah. So I don't think
he knows he can't get it back. It was just
it was a good joke though, or not a joke. He's probably very serious.
He wants it back, but I don't have that authority.
No, right? I do want to say like Jack Day on here, and I'm just going to read this. And there was a lot of people that did, and it alludes to the SB 1236. And I just want to say, so Jack Day asked. He said, "Explain the new law about hunting navigable waters. I understand the waterfowl part." But what if the use of water to get to state-owned land? So I think that kind of goes into 1236, and I just want to say that that's kind of living, breathing document, and that there's
using navigable water. You're gonna get if you get stopped, you're gonna get stopped for compliance, for boat safety. You're if you have a shotgun or a rifle in the boat and you're traveling from point A to point B. I would imagine that game warden will be able to tell if you were using it to get from point A to point B. Is that what he's asking? Navigable? Not hunting navigable water. It's using navigable water.
Well, I think that's what he's looking. I mean, because there's other people that commented with it saying, hey, what about this, with that and everything else. And I just want to say that, hey, you said it earlier. We said it, hey, we're learning together right now. So we're not running from the question. We're learning it right now.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, we're not running from it. There's just some more to learn about it before we can speak smart. Oh my goodness, I can't even talk.
Speak clearly
smartly
about it, intelligently.
And with that being, maybe some amendments and changes in the future. Who knows? We don't want to put you on the spot with it, so we'll take ownership of not answering that one.
The way I heard that, this particular listener questioned or stated that he was familiar with the legality of the shotgun and the waterfowl aspect, but he was I didn't hear a clear definitive as to use of navigation of the corridor. He didn't make reference to anything specific. So I will just say, and I'll just reiterate what we said earlier. We're going to be looking for compliance. If you're traveling through, what are you doing? again, water safety, right?
Yeah.
And if you understand and you are a duck hunter, there's really not a there's not a violation unless you have some other restrictions on board. So just look at what the means and methods are and go from there, and we'll figure it out as the time goes on.
Yeah, fair enough.
John Bowler says, why are the regs so damn hard to read?
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. I mean, and he makes a good comment here. He says, I've actually sat with game wardens who are trying to kind of not, I mean, they can see it and read it. Everyone can read it. It's
Interpretations can be different.
It can be.
So it's hard to, yeah.
But
did he by chance give a specific question?
He didn't. No.
He didn't. He was just kind of like, these questions were flying in by the time we got to where we can do this. I want to go back to one more, and it was about it's kind of public land related. Somebody asked, can you carry a pistol when hunting on public land? I think that's a good question because there is an answer to that. But
oh yeah, here I'll go to that question real quick.
Okay.
Try. I can only
in
go
Texas,
fast
Texas is specific or unique in that sense. In a sense.
Yeah, there was some debate on that.
There's some provisions in there, and there's some clarification that needs to be brought forth to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So the question, okay, well, this is I guess a little bit longer question of that same thing. Is it legal to carry a sidearm on public land during bow season? I've heard this question a lot. Maybe some of those that have asked it as well may be listening. So I think that maybe not just during bow season. This is specific to bow season, but maybe we'll make it a little more broad.
But that's actually good because being more specific is actually easier for him to provide.
So that's the clarification that we're leaning towards of understanding. So we'll knock out the first part, public land. So the first caveat is are you lawful to be in possession of that firearm at that location? Public land could be the Corps of Engineers, and if in fact you're licensed to carry a sidearm, there are areas which you cannot carry, and those core properties are usually defined in those prohibited areas.
When you say licensed, though, as a constitutional carry state, do you have to be licensed?
Okay, so again, it's about, do you have the authority to be there as a constitutional carry? Can you carry without having a license? I mean, I'm talking about in public.
Yes.
Okay. Under what terms are you making that constitutional carry?
I don't know. Yeah.
So constitutionally, and this is kind of getting outside of our wheelhouse. But constitutionally, you have the right to have that sidearm in your possession, traveling from point A to point B, not necessarily in public, being or being visible or shown or seen, right? Yeah. So for us as game wardens, we come across people with various arms all the time. Sometimes legal, lawful, and sometimes not.
Have you ever seen a sword?
Lots of machetes.
A machete. I was going to say the closest I could get to a sword would be a machete.
I'm talking like Walking Dead, Michonne with the samurai.
Haven't seen that yet.
Because I don't think they're out there chasing game.
So, and again, we're going to try and without muddying up the subject matter. So, we have to come across: do I have as the individual engaged in this activity, do I have a right to be in possession of this sidearm? Do I have that authority? In other words, am I lawful? There are places, government buildings underneath the license to carry regulation under the government code. There are certain areas that are restricted. The Corps of Engineers locally here say only the long guns are allowed. So we don't even hunt with archery equipment. Now, public property doesn't have to be the Corps of Engineers property. So let's go to the public hunting lands.
Sure.
There are prohibited acts in there, and they will be defined. I don't have that particular regulation memorized. I'd have to look it up in the book. and we don't have one of those with us, but there would be something in there that would state whether or not you could or could not do that. Now, on private property, this is where it gets pretty clear. On private property, you have the lawful right to be where you're doing hunting, otherwise you're poaching, right? Mm-hmm. And if in fact you are pursuing game with archery equipment, the law provides the exception to carry that sidearm because you're right to be there and you have that right to do that. We're not worried about, the unlawful take, illegal means and methods. The average conservation officer is going to understand whatever sidearm you're carrying for whatever reason isn't a hunting backup tool, per se. Right. Yep. So those provisions are pretty clear in the regulations. But we really need to clarify if somebody can give me an example. I'm hunting here, and this is how I'm hunting, and this is what I want to know. Then I would be better suited to look it up, because we get questions about municipality hunting and distances all the time, and going through that local government code is a chore in and of itself. Fortunately for us as game wardens, we're not really checking for compliance in those municipalities as often as they're trying to make, but as the future goes and we start losing those areas of hunting and hunting's coming more prevalent in those smaller areas, that's something that we're really going to be looking into and getting that cleared up.
So in fairness, each piece of public will be different. I mean,
correct.
It's different. The core engineer land here on Stillhouse is different than the WMA on Belton.
But they're still operated and managed by the regulatory entity, the same, the Corps of Engineers, but they're going to have their own provisions.
Right.
Yeah. And those are going to be, and they could be unique amongst, like you just said, but they also, you leave the county and you could do it back, you may be doing it over at the Corps of Engineers in Williamson County and not here in Belton based on other rules and regs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So every location, whether it be public, every public location is going to have their own provisions.
Fair.
Man, that's a lot of questions. You answered a bunch of them. I just
we do have more, and I know that
we have a ton more.
Sorry to everybody, we're not going to be able to get to all of them, obviously, but I think that we did pick some good ones.
We really appreciate you coming and doing this with us. It really does serve the community. I think that when you're spreading information, it's better to serve. It serves people better when you're spreading facts, and no better way of getting that information than asking the game warden themselves. We're privileged enough to have you come and join us and do this together, where we can ask you questions and you actually take the time to answer them. And I just want to let you know that it is serving the community well, because this community is asking these questions, coming together in a forum, and they're saying, hey, if you do have a chance to ask the game warden, ask them this. So man, it's always fun having you here, because we learn something new every time we talk to you. And let's do it again soon, talking about, we have tons more questions to ask now. We can, we have enough to ask, but what would you think would be another maybe seasonal update or something? We're right around the corner from dove hunting season.
Maybe a mid-season update.
Yeah,
either that or the possibility or the likelihood of the onset of, I want to say deer, but deer's it's unique in its own right, because are we talking archery? Are we talking general? Are we talking late season?
MLD?
So I would say maybe.
When I was saying mid-season, like fall.
Oh, gotcha.
Going into like November-ish.
Not a hunting season. You're talking about weather.
I'm thinking probably mid-October.
That's perfect.
And the reason I say that is archery season will have initiated. Okay. Dove season will be coming to
a split.
It'll be slowing down.
Sure.
Okay. The opportunities will be slowing down. The split, it might be there.
Yeah.
But that might be, at least our schedule will start, our work schedule will probably slowing down a little bit. So I think mid-October would be another possibility of coming in there. I will also say that, as your listeners are asking you guys these questions, some of them being, joking, and of course we all have a good sense of humor on occasion. depending on who you're talking to. But those, your constituents, they're asking good questions, and we're providing the best information we can based on what they're asking, but they also have the opportunity to ask those direct questions for those officers that are overseeing wherever it is that they're hunting. Because I would imagine you guys not only get Bell County hunters, but you get statewide. So I would encourage you to reiterate to your listeners, every game warden, our contact information is online.
Yes, that's how
we got in touch with you.
And they can get out there. They can field them directly from us. We encourage conversations direct. And I say we, if you're going to want questions answered about saltwater regulations, don't call Bell County, even though there are some officers here that could probably answer a few of those questions. I'm not one of them.
Go to that county.
But go to that area where you're going to be recreating and contact those officers there. We get paid to provide that service to you. Now, don't call me at 6 o'clock in the morning asking what time legal shooting hours
First
are.
light is, oh,
okay,
God.
the next
that would be
day.
the worst.
When they're legitimate questions, legitimate hours, please. I've had a few doozies in my day, and it's not comforting, when you believe that the question that you need to have answered right then and there is not very much an emergency. And
we run into that. We had to contact your counterpart here in Bell County when you were on vacation, and asked her a question. He said, "Man, I'm a little busy right now. I'll get back with you." 2 hours later, gave me a phone call back, had everything I needed. Thanks, man.
And then there's courtesy calls too. We were out doing our count the other night, part of our management program where we have to go
the
and
spotlight survey.
So we're doing our spotlight survey. He was like, "Hey, let's give the game warden a call. Let him know we're going to be out there and we're going to be
pays
using
dividends for us."
And he was just like, "Cool. Then I know not to."
Yeah, he with somebody. We had neighbors spotlighting back at us from a neighbor that's like 2 miles away, and they were hitting lights back at us. So I'm like, "Hey, good thing we called the game warden because they're probably calling him, and it's saving him a trip all the way out here."
There's some poachers out there, And he's like, "No, I know they're at the Caulfield Ranch. They're doing this. They gave me a call." So that's just kind of communicating with the law, man, and just getting. I always say, But listen, we wanted to. I don't know if you're able to accept a gift from us, but we wanted to send you with a dove cord. I know you do hunt when you have free time or whatever. If you're not allowed to accept it as a gift,
which I am not,
take it and use it, and give it back. Tell us how it worked for you.
Test it out for you is what I'm hearing.
Let's do a field test with it or whatever. But yeah, I do think that you are not allowed to take a gift, but maybe you can give it to another hunter or whatever. They're out there. They're got their birds piled up on a tailgate and be like, "Tell you what, man, you ever heard of the dove cord? Check this out." So
cool.
Take that with you, and we appreciate you coming out here with us. We'll wrap it up. Guys, we hope you're getting something from this. It really takes a lot of coordination on our part to, respect his time, respect his, profession and all that stuff. And we try to take it serious, bring him on, ask good questions, and do all that. But we're also trying to be, in a sense, non-filtered, so to speak. And, we're giving you guys an opportunity to take part in this. So by all means, if there was a question answered today and you have a follow-on question or you want to dig deeper or you'd like some clarity, drop it in the comments in our video. We'll get with the game warden and we'll reply to you guys and let you guys know what he said.
And maybe there'll be more on the SB 1236, we understand that that's a personal, people feel strongly about it. So let's
certainly not avoiding it. We're just understanding that we're still learning this together. So, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for coming out here with us. It's always a pleasure. And
thanks for having me.
We'll see you guys on the next one.